E3 gave us our first look at the Resident Evil 2 remake, and oh my god, what a thing of beauty. I mean, just look at Leon. Look at that baby face. What's up, everybody? My name is Copster, and for those who've never played the original Resident Evil 2, I aim to tell you a little bit about the game, the wonderful franchise, why this remake is important, and what it could mean going forward with the franchise. And if this is all stuff you've heard before, well, it's just a fun excuse for me to talk about Resident Evil. So let's get into it. First things first, Resident Evil 2 came out in 1998. The game takes place just 2 months after the events of Resident Evil and what went down at the Spencer Mansion. Spoiler alert, shit hit the fan, people died, and most importantly, we almost had a Jill sandwich.
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
We now head into Racoon City, a midwestern town just miles away from the Arklay Mountains where the first outbreak took place. Leon S. Kennedy, a charming young rookie for Racoon Police Department, arrives into town for his first day on the job. At the same time, Claire Redfield, sister of soon-to-be boulder-punching badass Chris Redfield, also arrives at town where she hopes to find Chris after he went missing shortly after the mansion incident. But when Leon and Claire cross paths, they come under attack by the Walking Dead. There's also dogs, lickers, a giant alligator, and spiders. Seriously, fuck spiders. The two team up and try to make their way to the police department, but are ambushed and eventually separated. The player can either control Leon or Claire on their paths through the streets of Racoon City, the police department, and an Umbrella underground research facility. All this while one of Umbrella Corp's lead researchers, William Birkin, turns into a giant eye monster that totally didn't scare the shit out of me when I was younger. For real, Bill. All that for research? Yeah, you do you, homie. And that's the general gist of the game without getting into spoiler territory, especially if there are those who want to venture off and play the game on their own. But now we move on to why this remake is important. Well, because it's Resident Evil. We need more of that in life. Okay, maybe not so much that, but how about a little bit more of this? In all seriousness, this isn't the first Resident Evil to be remade. Back in 2002, the original Resident Evil got a neat facelift with a GameCube exclusive remake, along with the first-time release of Resident Evil 0. While these games played incredibly well and gave the Resident Evil series a massive upgrade, unfortunately, sales for the games were not what Capcom hoped for. Despite good reviews, many Resident Evil fans and critics wanted a little bit more. Maybe an expansion on the universe and not so much the same survival horror that we've seen over and over. After several spin-offs, Capcom found their golden child with Resident Evil 4, where we see a much older, wisecracking Leon trying to rescue the president's daughter from plagued Spanish villagers. We also saw a change in the way players control the game. The fixed camera perspective was gone, and instead we stayed over the shoulder of Leon throughout the entire game. While I love the camera perspectives from the original games, taking the series in a different direction was pretty understandable. Not to mention it meant for a way to appeal to a general audience that wanted to play horror action games with a little bit of survival aspects sprinkled in the mix. But still, rest in peace, fixed camera angles. But after Resident Evil 4, Capcom wanted to keep this freight train going and continued with that tradition all the way to Resident Evil 6, and well, the game was a bit much. While I still played through it because I love the franchise so much, it was far too ambitious and suffered from an identity crisis. Luckily, the Resident Evil Revelations games brought us back to the nice mixture of horror and Resident Evil 4 gameplay while remaining canon to the rest of the series. It wasn't until Resident Evil 7 where they completely rebooted the franchise, hammering down on the horror more than ever, changing the setting back to something more familiar to Resident Evil standards and even switching gears on gameplay, taking away the third-person over-the-shoulder action-oriented surroundings and centering the game on first-person. I'll be honest, this kind of worried me a little bit. Played through the Resident Evil Survivor, a spin-off that came out years back, and I wasn't really a fan, but granted, that was early 2000s and video games have come a long way. But I was pleasantly surprised of how much Resident Evil 7 played like a regular Resident Evil game. This created a wonderful, intense atmosphere and almost too claustrophobic. But hey, I love horror, so that's a great thing. Resident Evil 7 was a hit all around, and I think it's safe to say most people adored the return to form. Despite the shoehorned Redfield appearance. Really, we didn't really need that. But in 2015, almost 2 years before the release of Resident Evil 7, Capcom announced plans to remake the beloved Resident Evil 2. And for over 3 years, we have been patiently waiting for some kind of announcement, or even a little glimpse. At last, at this year's E3, we finally received a release date of January 25th, 2019, and attached to that was a trailer, and my god, it looks so good. But in the trailer, we see a complete horrifying reimagining of the game with upgrades on environments, lighting, and even dialogue. We get to see Leon, Claire, Sherry, an ominous shadow. It's pretty much Ada. But from the looks of the trailer and with some information given at the convention, it seems that the core presence of the original Resident Evil 2 is there. This looks to be a great combination of the over-the-shoulder controls mixed with the dark horror we got in Resident Evil 7. And for fans of fixed camera angles, well, we're not going to get that. But unlike the remake of Resident Evil, maybe this remake can help shape the franchise going forward. No word has been given whether or not Resident Evil 8 will stick to 7's first-person horror. Perhaps if the Resident Evil 2 remake is a big hit, this could be a little taste of what 8 could possibly be. I would love to see a Resident Evil 3 Nemesis or Code Veronica remade as well, but do we really need them? No, probably not, but for nostalgia's sake, if the games sell, then hey, just keep making them. We probably want to see them. At least I do. All will tell when Resident Evil 2 is released early next year, and who knows? Maybe they'll bring back Tofu Survivor. Fingers crossed. Well, that's it. There you go. I hope gushing about Resident Evil 2 wasn't too much for y'all, and I hope everyone watching this is somewhat interested in picking up Resident Evil 2. If not for the remake, then hey, pick it up on GameCube. It's not that much, and it's totally worth it. Let us know in the comments what you think about the Resident Evil 2 remake. Are you excited? What do you hope to see from the future of the franchise, and which Resident Evil title is your favorite? I'm not going to say what mine is. Fire away in the comments, and if you dig this video, throw a like on it. And if you're new to this channel, hey, subscribe. There's more content and stuff.